it's his place. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! Can't wait! Let's go!
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Thank you for making us part of your morning routine. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing great on a Friday, man. Just a week away. One more week into the big show.
One more week until the big game. The Pro Bowl festivities have started last night. There were some interesting things that I saw. I didn't really watch a lot of it, Mo. I know that Baker had some funny lines in there. Him and CJ Stroud were kind of hamming it up. I saw some of the dodgeball highlights. I thought that was pretty entertaining. I will say this. The Pro Bowl format has not gotten me to actually tune in live to the Pro Bowl, but I do go out of my way to make sure I see the highlights of the games that were played, which is nothing I did with the previous Pro Bowl format when it was actually supposed to look like a football game. So I guess that's something.
That's progress, Chris. We have to call that progress. I'm with you. I'll take 5 or 10 minutes and check out the highlights of the various games. If it were going back to the old format where it was just a supposed football game, I'm not watching that. It is the Pro Bowl became the worst example of flag football, but you're wearing pads ever.
Correct.
I would rather watch teams play 7-on-7.
No, 100%. Mo, let's start the Friday off with this. I teased it yesterday. We're going to talk about it to kick off the show today. Brady Quinn. Now, Mo, you may not know this. Brady Quinn and I have a little bit of history as a Dolphin fan. There was a time way back when it looked like the Dolphins were going to draft Brady Quinn in the first round of the draft. And I remember
you were excited.
No, I remember that draft vividly because as a young Dolphin fan at the time, it was the first draft I was truly invested in. And I was embracing the idea of Brady Quinn being our quarterback. And then the Dolphins went out and take Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but needless to say, Brady did not pan out to be a great quarterback in the league, so we're okay.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Hindsight 2020, Ted Ginn didn't have a great career, but he had a better career than Brady.
That's correct. So Brady Quinn, terrific college football analyst. He named his top 5 NFL quarterbacks of all time. Mo, I'm going to give them to you in descending order.
Sure.
Number 5, he has Aaron Rodgers. Number 4, he has Dan Marino. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Joe Montana. And number 1, Tom Brady. Thoughts?
I actually don't have a problem with that list. I don't. I was going to say, while you were, as you started the name, I'm like, you better have Marino. And he did. And so he does have a clue. He kind of has now look, I get it. There is obviously, hey, where's Peyton? Look, would you rank Aaron Rodgers over Peyton as a quarterback? That might be the only difference because I think we talk about this all the time on the morning show. Don't let talent don't let the talent or how he does it confuse you with the career, right? I don't think Aaron Rodgers had a better career than Peyton Manning. I don't. And in the end, however you want to look at it, even though at the end when he won his last Super Bowl, Peyton was almost throwing punts. That's how long the ball hung in the air. He still found a way to manage the game with his mind. He literally done it. I saw him. He game managed in a way where you thought there's no way he's going to get through this, and he gutted it out. I think Peyton Manning should be ranked ahead of Aaron Rodgers. If I was going to make any kind of like little change, that would be the change. I know about the talent, but again, don't confuse talent with career. Peyton had a better career.
Yeah, that's what my issue was. Peyton Manning is a 5-time NFL MVP. Aaron only has 4. Peyton has 2 Super Bowl wins in, I believe, 3 Super Bowl appearances.
Right.
Rodgers has the one win in the one appearance. So for me, and you throw on top of that the cerebralness that Peyton is back there. Now, yeah, you can argue that Rodgers is a little more athletic.
No question.
Rodgers might have a little more arm talent than
Nope.
Peyton Manning does.
I'm there.
I'll give you that. I have no issue with that. But when it comes to just on the field accomplishments and the teams, now keep in mind, and again, Mo, when you're talking about the elite of the elite, right? When you're all sitting in the penthouse together and you're just trying to line everybody up in appropriate order, you need to get in to the nitty-gritty of it. When you're just talking about tiers, you're not gonna get finite with it. You're not gonna start breaking down individual seasons and who they played with and all that stuff, because you don't need to do that when you're grouping, the top 20 of all time and separating them from the next 20. You don't really got to go there. You can kind of get on the surface. But when you're all in the penthouse together and you're all really hashing it out, we got to break it down a little further. And I will tell you, Aaron Rodgers has left a lot on the table in his career when it comes to postseason success. I think he has had better opportunities than Peyton Manning has had. I think he has had, in a lot of situations, better overall talent, maybe not better individual talent, because you can look at some of Peyton's receivers and be like, well, Aaron never consistently had a Marvin Harrison during his career.
Or Reggie Wayne, sure.
It's fine. But when you look at the overall success and the overall talent of Rodgers' offensive line, which has always been a top-tier offensive line his entire career in Green Bay, that's one of the things the Green Bay Packers have always done the best. When you take a look at the defensive side of the ball, overall defenses compared to the overall defenses that Peyton had, when you take a look at, some of the running backs and some of the tight ends, I get they both had weapons. And you also need to look, and again, when you get into the nitty-gritty, Mo, we have to have this conversation. When Peyton goes to the playoffs, who's in his way?
There you go. And for me, that ends the conversation. Peyton's playing against the GOAT. Rodgers is losing to Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not throwing any
nothing against Jimmy.
And I'm not trying to shade Cap either. He lost to Cap, I think, a couple of times.
Yep.
Right? And Cap's a terrific athlete, but he's not an all-time quarterback at all. But he beat Aaron Rodgers multiple times. Aaron Rodgers has lost to guys who are not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Peyton has lost to the guy who's at the top of the tier in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I end up. You look at it and you say, what was Peyton's path to Super Bowls? It was Tom Brady. It was Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, if you take Tom Brady out of the equation and you said that Ben Roethlisberger was Peyton's biggest hurdle to get to a Super Bowl, I would argue in most cases that was still more of a hurdle than what Aaron Rodgers was facing on his side, because Ben Roethlisberger is a multi-Super Bowl winner, right? Like, Ben Roethlisberger is going to be a Hall of Famer. What was Aaron Rodgers facing on the other side? It wasn't anything the caliber of Ben Roethlisberger most times. It definitely wasn't anything the caliber of Tom Brady ever. So I look at Peyton, and despite all of that, despite having to go through Brady most of the time, despite having to go through Roethlisberger every 2 or 3 seasons when the Steelers were on their upcomings and making their Super Bowl pushes, despite all of that, he still got to 3, and he won 2. And then I look at Aaron, and I'm like, oh, you had 4 MVP seasons. You put up all these great numbers. Peyton put up great regular season numbers too. And then you lose to Jimmy G a couple of times. You lose to Colin Kaepernick a couple of times. I get it. And the Green Bay Packer fans, Mo, will come out and they'll say, well, some of those, a couple of those games, he drove them down the field. He did his part. Okay. It is. I don't care. I care about results. So maybe he drove him down the field too fast. That's part of it. That's literally part of the quarterback position. How much time did you leave on the other end for the other guy to come back and do whatever he needs to do? Did you leave too much time? Like, it's all part of the equation, Mo.
I agree.
So you take the good with the bad, because if I'm looking at the good in Aaron Rodgers' career, it wasn't just him. I can't just say, oh, they won that Super Bowl just because of Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure if we broke down that game, we could say, oh, well, this player had a really nice performance, and if it wasn't for this block on this play, that, you know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
It's the way the position works. Team success is with the quarterback. Team failure is with the quarterback. The same way we view all the quarterbacks. So we're not going to sit here and be like, well, Aaron did his job, but the rest of the team, no, we're not going to do that. At the end of the day, these are the numbers. This is where they are. I will say, if Aaron wins another Super Bowl, different conversation.
Sure.
Because
No
now,
question.
just like Peyton, he goes to a different team. He takes them to a Super Bowl and he wins one. Okay, now they have the same number of rings. All right, now the conversation is a little more leveled out. And I'm still giving it to Peyton, but I'm more open to the Aaron argument right now. At this current point, Mo, I'm not even open to the Aaron Rodgers argument over Peyton Manning. Because
the argument really is about his talent. How Aaron Rodgers could extend plays with his legs and his arm talent, and he's all those things. But if you do it on talent, Aaron Rodgers would be number one, right? And Patrick Mahomes would be number two on talent. We're talking about guys who physically can do it in a way that nobody else did. No argument. I'm not debating the talent. I'm talking about the career, and that's what you should look at, the career. And it's not like Peyton isn't talented. To me, Peyton Manning was the first quarterback that, as I watched him play or walk up to the line of scrimmage, he literally felt like he was a coach on the field. He'd walk up to the line of scrimmage, 53 is the mic, and he started rearranging people. And I mean, yeah, look, Peyton Manning was the most cerebral quarterback of all time. The difference between Peyton and Tom Brady, though, was Tom was just as smart, but Tom was more instinctive than Peyton was. And in some ways, that might have been Peyton's flaw. He was never as instinctive. Tom could actually do some things that were very instinctive. But that's how you become the GOAT, right? There's a separation and little things that you do that other guys don't do. But I'm not going to slight Peyton Manning. To me, if you don't have him in the top five, I guess we can have that debate. But I'm wondering why you wouldn't. Like, when you talk about what Aaron Rodgers has done in the regular season, the 4 MVPs, but most people say, what's the reputation for Peyton? Well, he's the greatest regular season quarterback of all. Well, if he's already the greatest regular season quarterback of all time, then you throw in all his numbers, then you throw in the 2 Super Bowl wins. How is he not top 5?
And how is he not better than Aaron Rodgers? Because if he's already the greatest regular season quarterback of all time, and he has better postseason numbers than Aaron Rodgers, the only conversation we can have now is talent. And if you want to go talent, hell, some people will have Michael Vick on the top of that list. If you're just going with God-given talent at that position, I mean, I could make an argument that Michael Vick is one of the most athletically talented quarterbacks I have ever seen in my life. Now, granted, the throwing of the ball, if we're just talking throwing of the ball, different story. But if you're just talking pure athletic ability and the ability to do things at the quarterback position, Mike Vick's in that conversation. Lamar Jackson is in that conversation. Gifted athletes. But Mo, once you say things like, well, how about throwing the football? Okay, fair, different story. Now I'm talking about guys like Dan Marino as being the most gifted in that category. You see what I mean? Like, you have to add these qualifiers into it. And at no point in the GOAT conversation are we talking about God-given athletic ability. I'm sorry.
And that plays a role in it, but then we have to look at your record and your resume, and that's what your God-given ability gave you, right? That's with all that God-given ability, what Aaron Rodgers is really good at is getting to the conference championship game and losing in the conference championship game.
Usually to the 49ers. Regardless of who the quarterback is.
For whatever reason. Right. Go figure.
Well, let's talk real quick. There's some turbulence coming when it comes to Vic Fangio. Obviously, we knew there was more to his departure from Miami than met the eye on the surface. I think that's fair. The Dolphins and Vic said it was mutual. We knew that he wanted to be with Philadelphia last season, but there was not an opportunity for him to be there. We know that his family lives in Pennsylvania, so being with the Eagles would put him closer to his family. And then they gave the line, we mutually parted ways. We heard a little bit about how Mike McDaniel wanted a more collaborative room in the defensive room, but it was left at that, and it looked like we were good to go. Looked like we were okay. But then Mark Schlereth comes out, and he has to give Vic's side of things. He has to set the record straight, Mo, so everyone knows what really happened down there in Miami. And apparently, according to him, what really happened down there in Miami was that some of the stars on the defensive side of the football for Miami didn't like to be worked the way that Vic Fangio likes to work a defense. And Vic Fangio was competing with the Miami nightlife and players not wanting to put the effort in and players not wanting to be coached hard. Okay, maybe that's true. I have no idea, Mo. I wasn't there. You weren't there. Maybe players didn't want to be coached hard. I'll tell you this, though. We didn't hear this coming out of the Brian Flores era. And a lot of those same players were there when he was there. And from all things we've heard, he was pretty tough when it came to coaching players hard. Just
Right.
ask Tua Tagovailoa. We didn't hear it from the previous defensive coordinator before Vic Fangio came in when he was fired. And he was talking about his time in Miami. He never alluded to, one of the reasons it didn't work was an effort level on players. But maybe it was. Maybe it was an effort level thing. I don't know, Mo. But I will say this. There were players, and I'm not supporting them going to social media and doing what they did, but there were a handful of players in the Dolphin organization who were social media happy about Fangio moving on. Maybe they didn't get along. Maybe it was a difference of opinion. But I will say this. Vic Fangio has a system. It is a system that is copied by many teams across the NFL. When you are the guy who makes the system, 9 times out of 10, you don't change your system based on what you have. What you have needs to adapt to your system.
Agreed.
Because you made the system. That's how it works. I'm not faulting him for that. His system is copied as widely as it is across the NFL because clearly it's a pretty damn good system. So I'm not faulting him for saying, this is how I run my defense, and then taking what they have and trying to plug and place it in to fit what he knows is successful.
Right.
But Mo, the other side of that is pretty simple. Watch the tape. When your best player on the defensive side of the ball is Jalen Ramsey, and he's covering the third best receiver on the opposing team, and you don't let him shadow the best receiver, and the best receiver is carving up your fourth best cornerback because your third best quarterback is playing the slot, and you're not going to move him because you only let him play the slot because that's what you think he's good at, and your second best corner in Xavier Howard is injured, so now you got your fourth best corner on the field, and he's just getting torched play after play after play, and you refuse to move Jalen over or let Jalen shadow him. Okay, I get it. That's your system. But when we see that happen 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row, and you got Jalen Ramsey saying things like, "I'll do what I'm told to do. I would love to shadow the best receiver on the other side of the field." Like I know I'm good enough to do that. But it doesn't happen. Okay, you're paid to be the defensive coordinator. That's your thing, Mo. But at the same time, clearly it wasn't working when you didn't have all the pieces. And Miami had a lot of injuries over the last 5 or 6 games. I get it. But if the pieces are no longer there and you're refusing to change the system, where are we going to end up? And you saw where Miami ended up. And then the other side of that was we got more clarification on this collaborative buzzword. Apparently, the way Vic Fangio runs his side of the football is that in meetings, his voice is the only voice. Other coaches are not allowed to have a voice. They have a voice when they're meeting individually with their little individual skill groups. But when it's a full-on defensive meeting, Vic's voice is the only voice. Fine. I bet you in some organizations, that works well. Have you seen who the head coach of the Miami Dolphins is?
Right.
I'm pretty sure one voice And I'm the only. I'm pretty sure that doesn't just vibe with what their head coach is. That's not his personality. So I get it. If it worked, it would have been great. It just didn't work, and that's okay. And that's not Fangio's fault, and that's not the Dolphins' fault. It wasn't a great fit. Of course, you take it on because he is one of the greatest defensive coordinators in football today.
No doubt.
So, of course, you explore the option, Mo, but sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay. And I hate the narrative that we have to blame somebody. Oh, it's the Dolphins' fault. Oh, it's Fangio's fault. Oh, he couldn't connect with the. No, it just didn't work.
It just didn't work.
And that's okay, right, Mo? Is that okay?
It should be okay. It literally just didn't work. I don't think it's controversial. Fangio does have a system. His resume speaks for itself as a coordinator. But to your point, you usually don't adjust to the players; they adjust to your system. But what I would say is, when they started having that rash of injuries, I think that's when you have to adjust the system, right? Because then you don't have the horses to play the system, right?
Right.
You have to recalibrate and adjust your defense. Hey, guess what? I'm gonna let Jalen shadow this guy, and everybody else can do zone with some help, right? We can do it that way. There are different ways to adjust. I actually thought when they lost, his name escapes me. You would know it. The pass rusher, their best pass rusher, I believe. What is his name? Man.
Christian?
When they lost him, I thought automatically, so less time, you need to be able to cover better. I thought he would adjust more and they would do more like a Tampa 2, especially with the injuries, right? Because you have to adjust because now you're not getting that push up front, which means your corners are working overtime. Look, no knock. I'm not knocking him at all. He's a great defensive coordinator. And I thought I heard Gene say this, and I think you know this as well. His heart was never there. No. His heart was in Philadelphia. His heart was back there with family, friends. That's where he wanted to be all along. I'm not saying in any way he didn't give you his all as a coach. I'm just saying in the end, like you said, it just didn't work out. And now he's where he wanted to be all along, right? That maybe he wasn't a fit for Miami to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the city of Miami, along with the organization, wasn't a fit. He might have tried to work it out, but maybe when you've been in the league as long as he has, it might have made him feel some type of way, Chris, to be coaching for a guy that's coaching under a guy who's so much younger than him. Look, some guys can do it and not bat an eye. Other guys can do it and they're looking like I've forgotten more than this guy knows, and he's talking. Like, why is he talking to me? Like, I just think it didn't work out. You move on, but you don't start pointing fingers. You don't blame anybody. You just say, I like the statement. Mutually agreed to part ways, and good for him. Good for Philly if he goes back to Philly and makes things work there. Yeah. I think the Dolphins will move on from it, but it's not a controversy. Like you said, sometimes it literally just doesn't work.
Now, Mo, we just talked about Vic Fangio. He came to Miami based on his resume. Maybe it was going to be a good fit. Maybe it wasn't. Ended up not being a good fit. But he got the opportunity because, and not just the opportunity. It's not like, he was looking for a job and Miami was the only team offering. Miami sought him out because of his resume. Right. Miami sought him out because of what he has accomplished in this league, even though he has some failures in there, even though he has some flaws in there, but he is regarded as one of the best defensive coordinators of this generation.
Great.
And that is why his defense is copied and implemented in parts throughout the league. Couldn't you make the same argument on the surface for Bill Belichick? He is regarded as one of the greatest head coaches of all time. He is certainly regarded as the greatest head coach of our generation. His resume does speak for itself, Mo, but yet 6 or 7 teams, quarter of the league almost, needed a head coach. One team was interested, and he bombed. He wasn't able to let his personal desires to want control in the front office, and it came out this morning in The Athletic. The Athletic confirmed all the rumors that we heard. The Falcons owner was very comfortable with Bill Belichick. The Falcons owner was seeking out Bill Belichick. That was going to be his guy unless Harbaugh wanted to go to Atlanta. But if it wasn't Harbaugh, it was going to be Bill Belichick.
Right.
The issue was, and it was described as frosty. Every time Bill met with the front office, it was frosty. Why? Because Bill Belichick wanted front office control. Bill Belichick wanted to bring his people over and put them in the front office and remove some of the people that were currently there. Mo, he had to know going into this Atlanta situation, that was the one thing that could keep him from getting this job. The one thing, if he really wanted to coach this season, and we can say that, maybe he did really want to coach, but if he was going to coach in Atlanta, it was only going to be this way. It was only going to be if he had control. If it was the Chargers job or if Dallas reached out to him, maybe he would have said, okay, fine, I'll just coach because those are better programs and better teams, and I don't need to have the front office control. Maybe that was his mindset all along. But Mo, he had to know, specifically for Atlanta, if I want them to hire me as the coach, all I have to do is just play nice and not demand all this control up front in the front office. That's it. And they would have hired you.
They look, Arthur Blank wanted him.
They wanted to hire you.
He absolutely wanted him. We talked about before how some guys in that interview, they don't wow you. They don't sell themselves. His resume would sell him, but when he walked in, the first visit, from what I heard, went great. So they were loving on him. Arthur Blank was like, we're about to get our guy. And then some of the front office people who Arthur Blank has had a long-standing relationship with, they came to Arthur Blank and go, Arthur, no offense, but does this guy know that you're hiring him just to be the coach? Because I get the feeling, you know what I mean? He wants a little bit more. They come back in the second interview and they have the conversation. Bill's being Bill now. Bill's like, yeah, I was planning on bringing some of my people in here, and look, he stopped himself from becoming the head coach of the Falcons. And there's a part of me that understands where he's coming from. I'm Bill Belichick. You guys have never won anything, ever. Like, how can you tell me no? You've never won nothing. I'm clearly an upgrade. I'll be the best thing smoking as soon as I get into the office. Why would you tell me no if I want all this? I think Belichick really thought he could kind of muscle his way into getting what he wanted power-wise. I think he thought, if I've got Arthur on my side, the rest of them will follow and they'll accept their fate. And I think what happened was the front office people, they actually got Arthur Blank to come to their side. And Arthur was like, yeah, Bill, I'm not bringing you here to be the GM and the coach and have that kind of power. And Bill probably came back with, so I'm the coach, but me and the GM are kind of like co-GMs. you know what I mean? Like he's not my boss like most GMs. Like, I only answer to you, that kind of thing. And Arthur was like, no, he's the GM. He will be making the drafts, the cuts, the trades, all of that nature. He will be handling all those duties.
He's also your boss.
He's also your boss. You actually have to answer to him. You have to go through him to get to me. And Bill was like, I don't like the way that sounds. I don't like the way that sounds at all. I really think that Bill Belichick was stunned that they didn't just concede all the power. Bill Belichick would be coaching next season had he not overreached.
Does this hurt his legacy? Because you can only go on the last chapter you've read, right? So before he gets to New England, up and down coaching career as a head coach, great resume as a defensive coordinator prior to New England, championship resume as a defensive coordinator prior to New England. But he comes into New England with a subpar head coaching resume. From Cleveland. Everything happens with Brady. All time with what he did with Tom Brady. Then Brady leaves. Subpar once again. Then you leave New England. You have a chance to stretch your legs. You have a chance to go out there, greatest coach of all time. Only one team wants you, and you can't land the job. Maybe you didn't want the job. Maybe you only wanted it under the one circumstance. But at the end of the day, Mo, it doesn't change the look. The look is you're the greatest head coach of all time. No one's going to dispute it. Tom Brady leaves. You can't win games anymore. All the issues that were probably happening when Brady was there are all now coming to the surface because you don't have Tom Brady to cover them up. And a lot of the issues are with Bill Belichick and how he runs a team and how he deals with people, right? So his time in New England comes to an end. It's going to be a fresh start. He wants an underachieving team so he can lead them to greatness.
And I like that.
And now he's not coaching this season. If this is it, if there is no head coaching job 2 seasons from now, if he never coaches in the NFL again, this wasn't the best chapter to go out on.
It's not. And I think that in the immediate aftermath, we'll have those conversations that people have already been having, but that'll continue to go with, well, without Brady, how good a coach was he? I'm just saying. And I would just push back and remind people, absolutely, Brady was impactful. The heart of everything they did there in New England. But I want to remind you, because I witnessed those first 2 Super Bowls, that wasn't because of Brady. That wasn't Brady throwing them to victory and being a dominant quarterback. That was Brady. He was a game manager. Those first 2 Super Bowls, a terrific one, but those first 2 Super Bowls were defensive driven. I actually think the second one was driven because they got the last great season out of Corey Dillon. And Corey Dillon, I think, rushed for over 100 yards in the Super Bowl, had a 1,700-yard season through the regular season. So they ran the ball more than anything. So I'm not saying Brady wasn't good. Those first 2 Super Bowls, that was more about the team and Belichick. But the last 5, come on, man, Brady was dominant. He was dominant. How many times did he drive down the field, make a winning drive, not just to win in the Super Bowl, but against Peyton Manning when they had, how many times did Brady lead you on game-winning drives late in postseason games? Like, you got to the point where you're like, he can't do it again. And he did it again, time and time again. So I have no problem with the idea of, I don't know, Belichick, those last few years, Tom really was covering up a lot, wasn't he? That's a fair argument. And to see him plummet the way he did and Brady go to Tampa and win a Super Bowl, that doesn't help.
3 straight division titles.
Right. That helps Brady, but it doesn't help Belichick at all. And for him not to be coaching this season, Chris, because I would make the argument he's going to be a year older next year.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't want an older coach now and only one team really had interest, how do you know how many jobs are going to be open that are going to really want him? I really think that had he not gotten Atlanta, you couldn't really look at the Commanders. Like, you couldn't land any of those jobs. That blew my mind. Like, I'm getting to the point where even Carolina was like, nah, we're good, Bill. We're cool. Like, even Carolina.
If Bledsoe doesn't get injured
by Mo Lewis,
does Belichick win a Super Bowl in New England? Because here's the premise. Here's the greatest Bill Belichick defender will say exactly what you just said. Tom Brady was a game manager those first couple of Super Bowls. The defense was the strength of that team. The defense is what carried them to a Super Bowl, along with a consistent run game and Brady being a game manager. Well, the defense, for all intents and purposes, would have basically been the same. All the other pieces, for all intent and purposes, basically would have been the same. So if you insert Drew Bledsoe, who at that time was probably a better quarterback than Tom Brady, could he have been a game manager and could he have led the Patriots to those first couple of defensively driven Super Bowls and still got Belichick a couple in New England? I don't know. And obviously we don't know the answer to that, Mo.
We don't know for sure, but if you're asking me, I would say probably not, because... But
that's an issue. That's an issue.
Only because we were just talking about what Joe Flacco is known for. He's a good quarterback, but he does have this habit. Drew Bledsoe was that kind of guy. Drew Bledsoe was a gunslinger. Drew Bledsoe, he'd have a 350-yard passing game with 3 touchdowns. He'd also have 3 picks. That's who Drew Bledsoe was. I don't know if Drew Bledsoe was capable of dialing it down. You know what I mean? And going and being good with like, well, I'll throw for 225 yards. And maybe he was.
Maybe.
He hadn't shown it up to that point. And remember, Drew Bledsoe went on to play for the Cowboys, played for Coach Parcells, and that didn't work out because Drew Bledsoe could not tone it down. It didn't work out. So I get what you're saying. I don't want to diminish Tom Brady in any way. Like I said, the GOAT is the GOAT. And to be fair, yes, he wasn't a stud quarterback those first 2 Super Bowls, but somebody did have to make timely passes when they were needed, and he was the guy that made the timely passes. So I don't want to diminish him in any way. You're right. If you go back and redo it, and Drew Bledsoe is upright and he never gets hurt, Brady's still sitting on the bench, do they go on to win a Super? I don't know. What I will say is what wouldn't have changed is they would have still been in the weakest division in football for the better part of 20 years. They would have been in a division where there wasn't another quarterback who you could say was Tom Brady's rival for 20 years. Like every team in that division had bad. I don't know how you managed it. That's like a hat trick or something. Like every team in that division had bad or mediocre quarterback play for the better part of 20 years. I've never seen that before. So Drew Bledsoe would have been like, I'm going up against who? Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
What are the names? Chad Pennington.
Yep.
I lose count of all the Jets quarterbacks because but I'm just saying that part of the thing that gets lost in their dominance was, and you can't take away from their dominance, as the league became more and more a quarterback-driven league, that particular division, they only had one quarterback, and it was Brady. I'm just saying.
It's a tough, and I don't know, because if as a Patriot fan, and it's not a slight on Brady, it takes nothing away from Tom Brady.
I'm not.
But if you're gonna sit here and say no, they wouldn't have gotten those first 2 Super Bowls if Bledsoe was there, or I don't think they would have, or it would have been a challenge, then I'm gonna sit here and say that's a knock on Belichick, not Brady. Because if all Brady was a game manager, Bledsoe, it was a pretty decorated quarterback in the league.
He was.
If your head coach had all the pieces and those first 2 Super Bowls, Brady was just a game manager, just making the on-time throws. He wasn't doing anything spectacular. Let the defense come to you, manage the clock, run the ball, situational football. And I think most Patriot fans acknowledge that's basically what Brady was his first couple of Super Bowls. If you're telling me, take out Brady, put in Bledsoe, that you couldn't at least get there, it's not a slight on Brady.
No,
it's a slight on the head coach.
It actually is a good point. If when you hear it, it sounds like you're banging on Brady.
No,
but what you're saying is everything's the same, Bill, except for the quarterback, and you're the guy. Like, what's the problem? Look, and we'll never know the answer to
that.
I'm only going on what I saw of Drew Bledsoe with the Patriots, what I saw from Drew Bledsoe before the Patriots, what I saw from him after the Patriots. Talented quarterback, could sling the football with the best of them, but he did throw. He had a knack for throwing the bad pick. I think if I'm Bill Belichick, I'm driven with one goal, and it's not to beat Don Shula's record, because that is a great record to be the guy on. But more important than that, never mind that. More important than that, I need to win another Super Bowl
without Tom Brady.
Yes, I need, and it's weird to say this. You've already got the amount of Super Bowls and all the championships on your resume, but now people are kind of doubting you and going like, well, you were pretty good. But really what it was is Brady carried you for most of those 20 years. And if I'm Bill Belichick, why would you not be driven to coach again? And it's strange, right? Because Pete Carroll, who's a great coach, but not nearly as decorated as Bill Belichick, he doesn't feel that way, right? Nope. Because, Russell Wilson was their franchise quarterback for about a decade. They went to 2 Super Bowls with him, won one. But even when they won, they didn't say, "Well, we won because of Russ." Russ was more like
He was a piece.
a high level game manager in his own right. And what Pete did was, look, he got rid of Russell Wilson and had great success with a guy who was a career journeyman in Geno Smith. It made you go, Pete Carroll's actually a hell of a coach, isn't he? Right?
Yep.
And so I think that Belichick feels that heat where he's like, I'm not going to let Tom get the last say in this. And I know he'll never say it publicly, but you know Brady's somewhere smiling. You know he's enjoying it.
He is, because you can only look at what was produced. And what was produced was after Brady left, you had a playoff appearance immediately after he left where you got blown out against the Buffalo Bills. And then it progressively got worse after that. You didn't make the playoffs again. Your quarterback situation became a dumpster fire. Your relationship with your quarterbacks was non-existent after Tom Brady left. Then we found out after Brady left, you didn't have a relationship with him either.
Right.
So it's not like you and Brady were best friends and attached at the hip. You and Tom didn't really get along. You never had dinner together. All those years in New England, and you two never broke bread together. So if you can't get on the same page with Tom Brady, clearly you're not going to get on the same page with Bailey Zappi or Cam Newton, or Mac Jones. Obviously, those aren't the guys you're going to get on the same page with if you couldn't get on the page with the greatest quarterback of all time.
Right.
And then Tom leaves, and it's just all rainbows for Tom. He wins a Super Bowl year one, 3 straight division titles. Sure, each season Brady was away as he got older. He went further and further away from a Super Bowl, right? He wins the Super Bowl. Next year, he wins the division. He wins a playoff game, doesn't get back. The final year, he wins the division, doesn't win a playoff game. You could see the trend. It was going in the opposite direction for Tom. Okay, the guy's in his mid-40s.
Yeah. Please don't leave that part out.
Correct.
Don't leave that part out.
Let's not forget, in his mid-40s, he's winning back-to-back-to-back divisions and a Super Bowl with a franchise that has done nothing for the better part of 25 years.
Right.
So I'm just saying, Mo, but I digress. Let's talk about this. Never in my life did I ever think I would be uttering these words. Odell Beckham Jr.'s father praises Baker Mayfield.
Really? Wow.
After the loss in the playoffs to the Kansas City Chiefs, Odell Beckham Jr.'s father came out on social media and he praised what Baker did this season down in Tampa Bay and said that team might be in the Super Bowl if his son was playing with Mayfield still, and maybe Odell should have stuck with Baker and not left Cleveland. And then he went on to talk a bunch of trash about Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Odell's dad is a hate who you're with now and always wish you were with someone better.
Correct.
But it's still funny, Mo, to see him showing Baker some rightful love, by the way. But to see him showing Baker some love all these years later after he was kind of the start of Baker's falling in Cleveland, to be honest.
He was complaining.
Yeah.
I think that someone needs to teach Odell's dad the line about you need to learn how to love the one you're with.
Right.
That'll make better for your future. And as a free agent, I don't care if you're a running back, tight end, DB, you have to look at the teams that want you and make a choice, not based on, I can't control that. Most athletes are going to make a choice based on money.
Right.
But if Odell Beckham wanted a shot to still be one of the better wide receivers and put up 1,200 yards or so or whatever, you weren't never going to the Ravens. Nope. You had to know that. If you go to the Baltimore Ravens, you're not going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. I'm not trying to kill Lamar. I'm just being real about how their offenses run and what they do. They're not going to have 1,200-yard receivers. And he went there, and actually, he was like the third receiver at some point. So I'm not sure where he's at this stage in his career, but it's funny because his dad is like, he should go get with Baker or be with Baker. And I'm like, I don't think he can help Baker now. Like Baker's got better receivers right now. Like he wouldn't be an upgrade with the current receivers that he has. He'd be maybe the third or fourth.
4. I think he'd be behind a healthy Gage in Tampa Bay.
So he's the fourth receiver, right? And look, maybe that's where he's at in his career because he didn't have the speed or the quickness that he once had, so he can't separate as well. It is strange to hear his dad say those kind of things, but good for Baker for turning his career around. And I hope Tampa Bay does him a solid and gives him a really good offer, and makes him their quarterback of the future because he's still a young man going forward.
Mo, the Los Angeles Lakers knocked off the Boston Celtics last night.
Yeah.
Laker fans are talking a lot of talk this morning, Mo. Could we be turning a corner?
Yeah.
They did it without some big names on the floor. Mo, I look at it. I didn't watch the game last night. I don't watch many Laker games, but I saw the box score, and my initial thought was, happens. This has happened numerous times this season in the NBA. The Warriors just knocked off Philadelphia a week or so ago. I felt the same way. I've seen Boston lose a couple this season to teams they probably shouldn't have lost to, and I felt the same way. This happens over a long season.
You and me
Even
both.
when people don't rest.
Right.
Sometimes you just come out flat. Sometimes, for whatever reason, another team is hyped up. And Mo, another reason this happens a lot in the NBA, I'm not saying the Lakers are this bad, but you get into these situations where a good team is coming in. You're all hyped up because it's a good team coming in. You want to go show something because you know you're going to be on the highlights tonight because you're playing one of the better teams. And sometimes you just got a little more fight than that team had on a Wednesday night. Now, the Lakers aren't a terrible team. They have a lot of guys on that team where it's not like they're a young team and they're in that situation. But the Lakers were just better last night. It is what it is.
And
the Lakers, they're going to lose their next 2 out of 3 or their next 3 out of 6 or whatever. They're a 500 basketball team.
It's one of those things too. Like it works the other way around too. You're the Celtics and the Lakers are coming to town, and you're like, "Oh, LeBron and AD aren't playing. How hard is it going to be? We'll be done with these guys by halftime. We'll be up fit, and maybe you don't go as hard. You're not as driven. And I'm not making an excuse, but I've seen that happen time and time again. It becomes the ultimate trap game. You and your fans are thinking we're going to blow them out before the third quarter's done, and they just outwork you. And
Lakers fans were thinking that after the last blowout loss they just had.
Right.
Then they hear LeBron and AD are not playing, and they're like, well, we're going to lose by 40.
Right.
Not even going to watch. Like, no one thought the Lakers were going to win that game. And then winning the game, Mo, literally changes nothing.
I walked into it thinking, I'm going to watch the game. This is my mentality, Chris. I'm gonna watch it for as long as I can stand it because I thought we're gonna get destroyed, and they ended up winning the game. So I ended up seeing all of it, and it happens, right? That's what happens. We're heading towards the All-Star break. These are the dog days in the NBA where it's a drag, where you can tell everybody needs that break. They need that break to kind of recharge themselves. It's a good win for the Lakers, but does it make or break anything for me? No, we were ninth in the West. We've lost to multiple sub 500 teams. So I look at the Lakers and I'm like, I see a team that's a play-in team, and I don't understand that because you're a play-in team with 2 top 10 players. That's not supposed to be the case, but such is the state of the Lakers. But I'm not in awe of that. Good win, but you keep it moving. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to be like, we're turning a corner. You know what I mean? Because they thought they were turning a corner when they had the big game and they beat the Warriors, who, by the way, is another sub 500 team.
Yep.
And then they lost to back-to-back sub 500 teams. And I was like, so not really turning a corner. And then they beat the Celtics. And like I said, I'm sure the Celtics were like, this will be over soon. And they just got it handed to them because they didn't bring the energy they should have gotten. Good for us. I'll take the win. There were people on social media joking, so that was the problem all along. Get rid of AD and LeBron. I was like, yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Get rid of those 2 guys, and we're going to be title contenders.
The Lakers, to your point, they're 9th in the Western Conference this morning. They are 2 games out of 8th, but they are also 2 games out of 12th. And that is the world that the Lakers live in. I mean, you want to go glass half full and say they're only 2 games beyond the Mavericks, or do you want to go glass half empty and say they're only 2 games from being caught by the 12th place Warriors? I mean, that is where the Lakers have been for the majority of this season, hanging around 8th through 12th. And I think they've been as low as 11th at one point a few weeks ago. And they just kind of fluctuate in there. But again, I mean, and the thing is, Mo, this late, and I know we just said we're only halfway through, but this late into the season, look what the New York Knicks just did. They go on a 14-2 run. And what does the impact in the standings have? Practically nothing. They move up 1 spot. They gain 2 games over that 16-game stretch because the people around them are playing the same caliber of basketball, and they're not playing each other. So that's the situation. And then with the Lakers specifically, what they need to do is they just need to win the games that are winnable games. And then they need to split the games against the teams that maybe they shouldn't be beating or they're equal talent with. And that's how you're going to start making up ground. But again, they've lost to a lot of under 500 teams this season. It's been up and down, and they are where they are as a result.
Which is why you hear their names involved in every trade rumor.
Every single one.
Every trade rumor in the NBA, a player's name is attached to Los Angeles Lakers. That is insane.
Mo, WWE news here. As you know, Vince McMahon is going through some legal troubles, but also as a co-defendant in that case is one John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, as he is better known in wrestling circles. We were kind of wondering, as people who are interested in the case or following the case, what would happen when Laurinaitis first kind of spoke about it? Because he hasn't really said anything. His people haven't said anything. Well, Mo, that all changed yesterday. Laurinaitis' lawyers spoke on his behalf, and now we kind of understand what his defense is going to be. The representation for John Laurinaitis have come out, and they are calling him, wait for it, this is not a storyline, Mo, this is real life.
Don't say a victim.
They are calling him a victim. He is a victim in all of this as well. Obviously, the press pushed and wanted more clarification on how he is a victim when we are very aware of what role he played in all of this. And his team basically referred to the fact of, you have seen what Vince McMahon is accused of. And it all has to do with Vince's power, his influence, his holding Mr. Laurinaitis' job over his head, all those things. So, Mo, it's going to get a lot messier before we get to the end, but it looks like Team Laurinaitis is going to take the victim card. And I will tell you right now, there will not be anybody who is more cooperative in this investigation than Team Laurinaitis, as far as giving that prosecution everything they need, every question they have about what Vince did, who Vince spoke to, side conversations. Hey, we heard Vince did this. Can you verify that? Yes, we can verify that. They are going to give everything they can on Vince to do whatever they can for Johnny to make sure that he comes out of this not clean, but not in jail. I mean, I don't know.
So if he gives up the goods, let's just say Laurinaitis becomes their star witness and he drops dime, he's probably going to get immunity. Maybe some kind of weird route, what do you call it? Instead of doing time, he gets probation or something to that.
Pays a fine, restitution.
Or maybe he skates all the way with immunity because that's the deal, because they want Vince so bad. I don't know, but like you said, I think Laurinaitis is getting ready to be the star witness, because it's no secret he was there. He was there. The question is, though, because he was there, and I know what his representative said, will the victim or the alleged victim, I want to say alleged victim, will that person corroborate what he says and go, yeah, Laurinaitis didn't really do anything. But he was there. He didn't help me out either. He didn't do anything, but he didn't do anything to help me or save me or prevent that from happening either. So, if you're there and all you can say is, I didn't touch anybody, you don't have clean hands. You're not a hero. So
Mo, we know he touched. We know he was a part of it. But clearly the stance he's going to take is, well, I had to. I had to be a part of it. Right. Vince said, get in
join
there.
in or you're fired.
It's insane. The
Allegedly,
whole thing
let me
is
put
allegedly.
Allegedly, Vince said that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, he said, "Johnny, go get my
Right.
special suitcase with all the names that I have in there."
Yep.
Allegedly, folks.
All right. Last thing before we got here, we got 3 minutes left. We're going to talk a little Cam Newton. Cam Newton is doubling and tripling down on his stance when it comes to Brock Purdy. He did want to clarify, but he did not say Brock Purdy is trash. He said Brock Purdy is a game manager. He also said that Brock Purdy is currently, Mo, the 10th best player on his own football team. And if you are going to be a game changer and a difference maker, you need to be the best player on your side of the football. And Brock Purdy is not that. Now, that's where that quote ended, Mo. Now, I know people are going to say you're just going to attack Cam here because in that one little tidbit, he wasn't talking about himself. That's fair.
Right.
He wasn't. But in previous tidbits, Cam Newton did say that he is a game changer and that he is a difference maker. So, Mo, because of that, I want to ask you this. Who is the greatest Carolina Panther of all time? Let me tell you some of the people that Cam Newton played with, and I want you to tell me that he was better than them. How about Steve Smith?
He wasn't better than Steve Smith.
He wasn't better than Steve Smith, and he played with Steve Smith for a good chunk of his career. So I would say that every year that Steve Smith was on that roster, he was better than you on your side of the football.
Right.
He wasn't better than Julius Peppers.
He was not better than Julius Peppers.
Played 2 stints in Carolina. When Julius Peppers was on that team, even though he wasn't on your side of the ball, he was better than you. How about Luke Kuechly?
He's not better than Luke Kuechly.
He is not better than Luke Kuechly. And you and Luke played a lot of time together. And every time that you and Luke were on the field together, or not at the same time, obviously, Luke was better than you. He was better on the defensive side of the ball than you. How about Greg Olsen?
I would argue Greg Olsen. It's close, but I would still give it to Olsen. Was one of the best tight ends in football for a long time.
And Cam was not one of the best quarterbacks in football for a long time.
Right.
So I would say that Greg Olsen was better than you. Oh, and by the way, he was asked, who is the best player, Cam, on the San Francisco 49ers if it's not Brock Purdy? And he said Christian McCaffrey. The same Christian McCaffrey who was on your team. He was better than you too.
Right. So you and Purdy have that in common.
Right.
Well, there you go.
No, I don't get it. Stop talking. Like, we can be fair about Brock, but the issue is you can't be fair about Brock because you keep saying these things because you're trying to remove yourself from the same category. People look at you and Brock Purdy and they think you're similar, and it bothers you because you think you're better. And how do we know you think you're better? You just said a couple of weeks ago that you should still be playing in the NFL today because there aren't 32 quarterbacks in the NFL today that are better than you.
I don't know. Right now, today, maybe there are. Let me put it this way. If NFL GMs and coaches thought what he thought, then he would be on somebody's roster. He would be. To me, it's that simple. The Cleveland Browns could have easily signed you because of all the injury problems that they had, and your skill sets are very similar to the guys they had starting, right? So you could have fit right in. But what they did is they went out and got a guy who was 40 years old sitting on the couch because he's a better quarterback than you. And
they could have called you when your first quarterback went down, when their second quarterback went down, when their third quarterback went down.
Sure. And it didn't happen. Look, I'm not taking away from Cam Newton's career. I think that he had a quick peak, but it was a short run. He wasn't this game breaker that he calls himself over a 10-year period.
About 2 years.
I would say it's about a 3-year window where you could say he was one of the guys. He was Lamar in a different way because he couldn't really make people miss like Lamar. He was more like a fullback. Like their design runs, they were literally like off tackle, like and he, because he was such a big and physically imposing man, it was effective. And I take nothing away from him, but I can be fair, even as a 49er fan, looking at Josh Purdy and go, I didn't say he was a top 10 quarterback. What I said was he's gotten better from last year. I see development in him. And what I would tell people is, guys, this is year 2 in his career. Because he was drafted where he was and he wasn't highly sought after, I don't know what his ceiling is. I honestly don't know. But we've had this conversation before. If somebody said, well, Mo, would you rather have a quarterback who's considered a franchise quarterback and you have him for 10 years and he wins 3 regular season MVPs, takes you guys to the championship game year after year but never win it, or have a guy who's just really good, but for whatever reason he was good enough to help you win multiple Super Bowls? I'll take the guy that helps me win multiple Super Bowls. That's what matters to me. As a fan, that's what matters to me. The individual stuff, that's secondary in my mind. You help us win, you're my guy.
And Mo, let's not forget, you go off the story that's already been written. So Brock Purdy has 2 chapters written. He played half a season. He took a Super Bowl contending team, led them to an NFC championship game where he was injured halfway through the game, and they lost that game. He comes back in year 2 with a Super Bowl contending team that many people thought had the caliber of talent to get to a Super Bowl, and he has brought them to a Super Bowl. That's it. That's where we are today.
Right.
I don't know what more you want from any quarterback. Doesn't matter where they were drafted. Doesn't matter what school they played for. Doesn't matter what their expectations were. 32 out of 32 teams would sign up if I said, listen, I got a guy. I'm not going to tell you his name. I'm going to tell you what he's going to do for you. Year 1, he's going to take you to an NFC championship game. You're not going to win it, but he's going to take you there. Year 2, he's going to take you to a Super Bowl. Are you in? They're all in. They're all in.
Right. And I feel like Purdy's damned if he do and damned if he doesn't, Chris, because if the Niners, look, if we're lucky enough to win the Super Bowl, they're going to say, look who we had around him. That's why he did it. And if we lose, they're going to say, I told you Purdy's trash. Yep. Purdy's the reason why they couldn't win it all. I don't know what he can do to win people over and just for people to just admit he's actually a pretty good quarterback.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. All right, Mo. Great show on a Friday. Close us out, sir.
Appreciate everybody in the chat. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thanks for checking us out live. Check out all the great content we have to offer at Sports Empire Network, guys. Check out the Empire.
Make sure you're back same time, same place next week as we really get into Super Bowl weekend officially here on Coffee and Sports. All that and more, including some JG and baseball news. That's Monday on Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show here on Sports Empire Network, and we will see you Monday morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it.